Hi, my name is Lorah. I am the adopted chameleon. I am a same race domestic baby scoop era pre-row adoptee from the United States. I was in a closed adoption, never got to meet my birth mother. My birth mother, um, I would imagine from the shame, just could never meet me. But she, back up a little bit. Where I'm from, we weren't allowed to know our history and things. So when I was allowed, I was probably in my mid 20s. I went and I wrote the state where I was from and asked them, can I have my non identifying information? Because that is what is allowed here. Not every state can you get access to full birth records, health history, family history, anything like that. So in my case, at the time, it was closed. I wrote to them and they said, for a fee, yes, indeed, you can have that information. And at the time, I was in college and waiting tables. So that fee was an astronomical amount for me. So I had to show actual hardship, which was another humiliation upon asking for, you know, who am I records. But after we got that all worked out, they lowered the fee. And I did indeed get to my non identifying information. After I believe it was a couple of months or so, I got a letter back, and within it was my non identifying information and a letter saying that they had ended their search. And that was it. That's all I knew. I was in my mid 20s. But within that packet was my actual birth certificate. So I got to see my birth mother's name and where she lived at that time. Oddly enough, my adoptive cousin just happened to be in the city where my birth mother had been was raised, and she still lived there. It was a long, twisted, odd tale, but she ended up in the shop that she owned, and as she said, as soon as she saw her, instantly knew that that was my mother. Instantly, she said, we looked that much alike. That's music to an adoptee's ears. Then she went on to tell me that she had called her, instead of approaching her in her own store, she had called her to make it a little bit more private. And my birth mother said, if she tries to reach me, I will get a restraining order. I do not want my husband or my children to know about her. At the time, I heard that, and I guess I forgot about that part of it, at least until a few years back. But at the time, I erased that part of it. I just heard that she had found my mother. So I did, through the years, write letters to her business. And then I found out she had sold her business, and I wrote letters to her house. And at one point, I actually had a phone number. And at that time, there were message machines, so voice message on there at the time. Never heard back. And all this time, I told myself that, well, she just didn't get the letter. It was mailed somewhere else. Someone didn't give it to her. Oh, someone erased that voice message. I basically lied to myself um, until I couldn't. In 2019, while doing DNA searches again, I had, like I said, it was, every 8 or 9 years you go back in, whenever your soul recovers from the rejection or the whatever you're doing to convince yourself to go on. Um, and I was back to I was finally to DNA, because in the beginning we didn't have that luxury. That was something different. We didn't have it. So now that it's readily available, and why are closed adoptions even allowed? I'm just going to say that right here. Why are closed adoptions even a thing? Because anybody can go get DNA now. I mean, they run specials all the time. This Christmas, guess what? after those results come in, there's going to be more people finding out about things like this. So, yeah, if you think that you know everything about your family, yeah, you might want to get yourself a DNA kit. Anyway, back to my story. DNA. I was in Ancestry because I'd done 23andMe. I did find some people there, which luckily helped me get to Ancestry.com, got some people there. And I was on Ancestry one day doing a search, trying to figure things out. And this little ad pops up. And it says, hey, for $29.99, we'll let you have obituaries today. And I was like, yeah, why not? You know, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars and half, you know, more than half my life. What's 30 more bucks? So in goes the credit card. Boom. All of a sudden, all these records start popping up. And I type in my mother's name. And there it is. She's gone. So after bawling my eyes out, my brain's going, hey, wake up for a second. Ding, 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 ding. There's some names in the obituary that you should probably pay attention to. And I realized, hey, brain, you're right. I have sisters, and I know for a fact I have sisters now. Look, their names are right there in front of your eyes for the first time ever. You're looking at them literally on the screen. So then my mood switched from sad to, oh my God, you know, what do I do now? I'm literally running around the room, laps, going, ah, I think there was some kind of guttural voisations of some kind coming forth. And then I calmed down and was like, I have to find them. And there you go. Social media, again, closed adoptions. Why are they there? And I found them. And once I saw them, I knew there really wasn't DNA necessary at this point, but in the future, we do DNA. Yeah, I saw people that looked like me for the first time. People don't know what this is like. The moment that you see somebody that looks like you, it's like seeing God, or whatever you want to call it. It is divine, beyond what you can even comprehend. And when I touched him, that was the spark of creation. Ooh, I'm going to tear up on that one because that one was deep. But we did get to meet. Back up a little bit here. After finding them and realizing I had to meet them, I sent a message through Messenger. And if anybody's on social media and you are not friends on Messenger, sometimes you don't get those messages. You have to be connected or something. Sometimes Messenger doesn't work perfectly. So I told myself what I always do. They didn't get it. And about a month in, one of my sisters has her own business. So I said, you know what? I'm going to email her business. And I did. And a week after that, I thought, well, surely she checks her own email, right? So I thought, oh my God, I've been rejected again. And I was in the adoptee groups asking for support because that's what we do when we get rejected, because people don't understand. And it's actually good that they don't. I'm glad y'all don't know. But just hold space for us. How about that? I was in there crying and wiped my tears, went on my day like I always do. And I was out with my husband. We were just around the corner from the house, and I was checking my phone, and there it was in Messenger, my sister. Hey, we want to meet you. I don't know what sound came out of me at that moment, but my husband's head jerked, looked at me, and he went, what the hell just happened? And I was going, get home, get home. And he's like, we're around the corner. I'm going as fast as I can. We'll be home in 30 seconds. And my hands were shaking. There were things happening. And I went, it's them. And he's like, who? And I'm like, my sisters. And he's speeding up as we're getting closer to the house, get inside. And I think I collapsed in the floor. And I got, as soon as I could pull myself together, I got with him and I said, yes, we can meet on a Zoom call. So 3 hours after I'd been crying in an adoptee group asking for support, I was on a Zoom call, literally with my siblings for the first time. And seeing people, seeing my people. And the talk, everything was just, it was synchronicity, just a line, boom, everything. And within a week, they were here. And that's when that hug happened that I felt like I had felt divine creation itself. And now it's been 3.5 years. And me and one sister have actually been on a podcast together. It hasn't been released yet, but wow, talk about progress in 3.5 years. And the other sister and I don't talk at all. That lasted about 6 months. So very different outcomes in reunion. And since then, I've also found my biological father and another sister sibling from him. And he's in a nursing home. He was a Vietnam vet. They were dating in college. And he had to go to a war that he did not want to go to. And she was unwed. So that's how that happened. And now her actions after that with the restraining order, I'm going to come back to that for a moment. Because when I thought about it for a while in 2020, I said, I wonder if there's anything left in those files. So I sent off to the state and asked for my files, and they said, oh yeah, you're going to have to pay for them and $0.25 each piece of paper. I said, fine, take my money again. And this time they go, yeah, you ain't getting out of it this time. I said, fine. So after going through that humiliating thing again and having to prove who I was, through all sorts of red tape, I got everything in my file. And I found out during that time, during the search, the state talked to my grandmother, and she knew I was looking. My mother ignored me the whole time. So I could have met a grandparent because I had 8 of them. I never met any of them. And the only one that ever knew about me ignored me. And I'm sure was a great help in getting rid of me too. And my mother, okay, the shaman thing of the baby scoop era, I feel that we could have probably moved beyond that. I really do. But when she said that she would get a restraining order because her husband and her children didn't want to know, or she didn't want them to know about me, that I couldn't forgive, because what was I? And those children, those are my sisters. We met anyway. I never agreed to be voiceless in this secret that she was keeping. That I did not agree to. That was her decision. And that husband, she lied. He had passed away 4 years earlier, unfortunately. That was sad that she lost her spouse that young. But it had been 4 years. So the only people at that time were her mother that knew about me, and my sisters. So those actions are why I talk about things, because I don't think anybody that has relinquished a child or a child should ever go through that. Secrets come out. You need to talk about it while you have a chance. You need to talk about it while you have a chance. Keeping secrets, we all know, is never the best thing. Oh, the pain in my side hurts. I'm just going to ignore that. You think that's going to go well for you? No. Well, keeping trauma stored inside of you for that long isn't going to go well either. My birth mother had breast cancer twice. This is another thing I never knew about until my sisters came along. That was something that I should have known. I'm not going to go into my health history here, but I should have known that. That was a failure as a mother and a woman. That is something that nobody should have kept from them. And she had it twice for years and years and years to think about. So that's a betrayal that I will never overcome. Another reason why I talk about these things. So, I have this saying, don't let anger be your anchor,
Yeah.
because some people, because anger is just another emotion. People are afraid of it though. um Anger can be a motivator. Anger can move you forward. Anger, some people think of as a demon, if you want to think of it that way. um and if you face your demons, they can actually thrust you forward, because when you are working from both sides, your light and your dark, and you're using your dark and have faced that dark night of the soul, as Jung says, and you have looked at your ego and you're like, yeah, sometimes I'm not a great person, sometimes I'm angry, sometimes, these nastier feelings are in me, but you use them to propel you forward and towards growth. Your demons are now working for you. It's more of a balance. My Kundalini instructor calls them daimons. He says you take your demons and move them into daimons, and daimons, and it moves you forward because you're using both sides of yourself. You're equally looking at yourself as good and bad, in which we all are. We're serial killers and saints, as they say. Or I've heard that, I think. um, but yes, we are. So use that anger, motivate. I mean, think about it. There were great people that were really angry. Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, he started a whole revolution and he was angry. That dude was mad. and and there are lots of people like that. I mean, it's something to be angry about. That's a normal feeling. The first time my therapist said, angry is normal, it felt like a literal weight had come off of my shoulders. Because before that, every time I'd gone to therapy, everybody just kept saying, you have an anger issue. You have an anger issue. Well, yeah, but why? They never asked that, because anger was the normal reaction to this abnormal situation I was in. And whether it's adoption or something else, sometimes anger is that normal response. Just don't let it, anchor you down and just pull you down like a weight. Propel yourself forward with that anger. Let it go. Don't hold on to it. I was adopted in the 66. Um, there are no records of me from birth until I was adopted. And the records are either I was within their house within a week or a month. I'm not really sure. The first picture I have of me with my adopted father is in February, so it would be a month, but I'm not really sure. They don't keep really good records of adoptees, because I asked the state I was adopted from, and I called the adoption agency. And guess what? No records anywhere. Yeah, I'm just a human life. Why would they keep records? But anyway, I made it to my adopted parents. And I remember my adopted mother telling me there was a huge snowstorm and they brought this little bitty baby to her. I was premature. She said that I was so tiny when they christened me. That's another type of indoctrination I'm not going to talk about right now, but it's in the adoptee community. We talk about this. So, anyway, I was baptized and they had to get a baby doll dress because at the time there were no preemie clothes. So that's how small I was. The first picture, I was literally being held like this in my adoptive dad's hand, just one hand. That's how small I was. Um, that probably had a lot to do with trauma, why I was premature. That's a whole nother topic we can go into. But I'm with my adopted parents. I had pigeon toes. My feet were like this on top of each other. And they used to, at the time, they would put the baby's feet in these boots, and there was a little metal bar, and the boots were like this. And I still remember these boots. I can remember seeing them. And I have proven that my memories um, are actual, because I have described apartments, my crib, thanks to my parents. They're blown away that I can recall things as early back as 1 year old. But I can. And I remember these little boots. There was like a red bar and little white boots that would hold my feet. And I remember slithering along the floor like a snake. And I was trying to get away. I remember trying to get away. And there was a gate because we lived in an apartment and we had the living part was upstairs and the kitchen was downstairs. And there was a gate that blocked because, of course, they didn't want me falling down the steps. So this gate would be locked. And I remember trying to pull myself up to get to that gate. And I don't know at what age that was, but I remember trying to do that. I also remember trying to escape out of my crib. Isn't that odd? Looking back now, I know what it was from, but that's another thing that people think that children can't remember things that far back. We can. We can remember. And being removed is a preverbal trauma. So I want people to look that up too. I won't go into that. You need to look up preverbal trauma. My adoptive parents loved me. My adopted mother was a trauma survivor. All she wanted was babies. She loved babies, all babies, 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 babies. Oh my God, that's all I got to hear about. And it's sad that she couldn't have her own. It really is. I really wish she could have. The man that she was married to before my adopted father, this was not my adopted father. She went in for I believe it was a gallbladder surgery. And at the time, this was legal to do. Her husband told the doctor to give her a hysterectomy, full hysterectomy. And they did it. No questions asked. So when she came to from her gallbladder surgery, she could no longer have children, the thing that she wanted more than anything in life. And that should have been a criminal act, but it wasn't. Might want to check what we're going back to nowadays, people. We might want to think about this real hard because this happened not that long ago. And I was adopted because of that. She needed help. She should have gotten therapy. She should have gotten, well, she shouldn't have got a lot of things because of what happened to her. But instead, they just told her to adopt a baby and everything would be fine. No, it wasn't. That woman still died with trauma. She died with trauma because she never got help because nobody ever told her that she needed help because what had happened to her was traumatic, horrible, and no one, should have that taken away from them. And infertility and thing is trauma. That's what someone should have done for her. That's the help that she needed. But anyway, and my father, Korean War vet. Trauma, lots of trauma. He needed help too. He needed a lot of help because he died with trauma too. And this is a funny thing I just want to throw in here. It's not funny, haha, it's just funny, peculiar. He would get drunk every Christmas because his mother died on Christmas and he was sad because his mother died, right? Of course, he was sad, grief-stricken. But they never connected why I was sad on the holidays and my birthday. Never got connected that I too was grieving the loss of my mother. And that's another thing that, hell, some adoptees don't even know why they're grieving and sad on their birthdays. They have no idea. I didn't for years. I would cry on my birthdays and I was like, why am I crying on my birthday? I had no clue. And it didn't matter if I had a table full of people around me going, hey, happy birthday, Lorah. I would go and cry by myself. Weird. And then it finally dawned on me. Yeah, I was mourning the loss of my mother. I was still sad from a pre-verbal trauma that I had never gotten help for. So there are a lot of things that people need to know before they adopt. And number one is it's trauma. And that all the love in the world is not going to fix the trauma. I can still hear my adopted mother say, don't you know we love you? Well, yeah, but I still have trauma. I'm going to do an example. I know this is more to the United States, but I think everyone can kind of relate to this. We have a lot of mass shootings in the United States, and a lot of them are in schools. Okay, if that unfortunately happens to your child, you still love your child, right? But that child is traumatized. All the love you can give that child in the world isn't going to change that horrific event that happened. Your love is going to help. Yes, it is. But they still need therapy and things, right? They need to release that. So that love needs to be filtered into support. And how are we going to help that trauma? Because the trauma's there, no matter what. Love is that good support, but they're going to need therapy. So that's what you kind of need to think of it is it's a separate event. You didn't necessarily cause it. It was an automatic response in the body that happened to that baby. That's an automatic response that happens. Our sympathetic nervous system goes into like an overdrive. It's like, think of it as an accelerator. It's pedaling down. And that baby's going, oh my God, do I fight? Do I flee? I can't do anything. I'm a baby. I'm helpless here. The only person I know is now gone. They're gone. What am I to do? What am I to do? I'm surrounded by strangers. That's what happens. It's an automatic response. I'm not trying to blame people here. I'm just trying to explain what happens in the baby's body. So this automatic thing happens. This trauma happens. The parasympathetic nervous system isn't exactly fully formed at birth. And if that mother is removed, she's kind of partially that parasympathetic nervous system. And that sympathetic nervous system is still in overdrive. There is no parasympathetic to pull that back and to relax that baby because mama's gone. So even if you're the most loving adopted parent in the world, that trauma still happened. That automatic trauma still happened. That's not necessarily your fault or even the birth mother's fault. Again, no blame is going here. That was an automatic response that happened in the baby's body. And you can't explain to a baby, well, we love you now, it's okay. Eventually, hopefully, that will happen and things will work out, the bond and everything. Whatever is going to be will be, because I don't see adoption going away anytime soon. So we need to address this trauma until we can get a better system in place, which is hopefully what we're all working towards here. Adopted parents, birth family, the whole constellation here. Hopefully we're all working together to make this better so that this trauma doesn't happen. This is why I talk about this. This is my why. If y'all want to know my why, this is my why. Because adoption isn't going to go away tomorrow. So what can we do now? This is the now. And this is what I really, 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 really wish my adopted parents would have been told. And that I think that maybe we could have had a whole different type of relationship. Maybe I would have felt closer to them. I don't know. I don't know because we never got what we needed. We did not get that help. I always felt like I didn't love them right. I saw, my parents were a little older than other kids' families, and I saw and I was an only child too, so I had nobody but me rolling around in my head, with these feelings that people were told me that didn't exist. I was supposed to be grateful. I was chosen. It was God's will. Oh, that one. Whew, Lord, that one didn't do any trauma damage. Are you kidding me? God's will that I was taken from my mother, put with strangers, and had these weird feelings? That one took some help. I had to have a therapy for that one. Yeah, because I was like, I thought God hated me. I really did. As a child, I thought God hated me. So please don't do that to your children. Please don't. If we had known that there was trauma for all of us and we could have gotten help, maybe I would have realized that I loved them the right amount and wouldn't have carried guilt for my entire life, or at least until they passed. And even after they passed, I carried that guilt. I still remember the day I let go of the guilt. It was January 22nd, 2019. I called it my new birthday because I released so much guilt. I actually felt like I became a new human that day. So I called it another one of my new birthdays because we have many as we shed these layers of things that come off of us as adoptees. It's a lot of layers. And that one was called guilt. You can only love people the way that you can love people. And I shouldn't carry guilt because of that. My adoptive parents felt loved, according to my adopted cousin. So I did my job as the adoptee. After they were gone, guess what? I got to be me. I got to find out who I was, and I got to have my life. Even though they loved me, um, I got to have my life because I was fulfilling a role for them, whether I knew it or not. And that was another thing that I really wish that they would have known, because I could have maybe been more authentic to me. And that's one of the hardest things for adoptees to do, is to be authentic and sovereign to themselves. But you kind of have to know who you are. So it's a vicious little cycle, especially if you're not allowed to, or it's impossible to find out, because that happens too, especially with a lot of interracial and things, adoptees like that. So adoption has many, many layers. And when adoptees like myself, I will speak for myself, when I'm saying adoption is trauma, I'm not saying my adopted parents caused me trauma, which is why I think comments come in and are so defensive. I think that that is why sometimes I get comments like that. Not always. I think some people just are mean. but think about what I'm saying. I'm talking about a system that made my birth mother feel like she wasn't worthy to be a mother and was shamed into releasing a child to people that were traumatized, that should have gotten help for their own trauma before thinking a baby would fix their trauma. This is the system I'm talking about. Adoption is a permanent solution to a temporary situation. And children lose their identity. They can't get a hold of their birth certificates. They can't get a hold of their health history. They can't see someone that even looks like them often, because of this legal, God, it's even hard to say that's legal. There's a state, and I'm going to misquote probably, I think it's Arizona, have to look this up, that is going to allow, this was this year, allow adopted parents legally to not tell their children they're adopted. It is 2022. I'm going to say the year, because I hope people, if this goes on, it is 2022 right now. And that happened. Why is adoption the only answer? I mean, there's guardianship, there's kinship care. And why do people not see this as selling children? At least in the United States. I know other countries have different laws. I'm speaking mainly in the United States because that's the laws I know more about. So I'm going to speak to things that I know a little bit more about. I don't want to misstep. So in the United States, it's not even regulated state by state. Some adoptees can get birth certificates, some can't. You can go through private adoption agencies that are completely unregulated. There are so many unethical things that happen in adoption. And a baby is worth $70,000. Well, depending upon which color skin you have and things like that. Now there's Pear Tree, an app that basically you can buy your kid through an app. Why do people not see that there is an issue with this? I mean, there is so much money going into foster care, and adoptees get these tax credits and things. If we took that same money and educated people and actually let people keep the child that's growing inside of them and gave them support, here in the United States, they will pay a stranger to keep the baby because the mother's poor. That one blows my mind. It's like, well, why don't you just give that? They've proven that maybe $2,500, as little as $2,500, which is more than what they pay for a stranger to keep the baby, this mother can meet all of their needs and keep the baby that she actually wants, is just being told that she's too poor to keep. Come on, people, we got to do better here. We have got to do better. This is human life we're talking about, and it causes trauma. You shouldn't have to be able to have a baby just because you're rich. Any people should be able to have children even when they can't afford it. It shouldn't be a crime. And that's what it's almost made to feel like to them, that they're almost criminals for keeping their child. So I'm going to go back in with my adopted parents right now with this. Guess what? My adopted parents had no money. They borrowed money to get me. I was raised poor. So if you all are thinking that adoption is about giving a baby more means and opportunity, then my adoption failed horribly because both my biological father and mother had more means and opportunity than my adopted family. So did my adoption fail? Many of you are going to go, what? That happens? Yeah, yeah. There's fundraisers for people to buy babies all the time. But if a mother says, hey, I'm pregnant, I just need $2,500, she'll be like, you should just give that baby up. Why is that? Why is that? But this is what has become normal in society. This is why we're talking out. This should not be normal. This should not be normal. I'm sorry that my adopted mother couldn't give birth. And I'm sorry that there was infertility trauma. But we have to each be responsible for our own traumas and not inflict other people with more trauma. That's not fair to anyone. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the baby. It's not fair to anybody in that constellation. The baby is not only taken from the person giving birth, there's another parent, there's two parents, there's grandparents, there's aunts, uncles, siblings. There's a whole constellation that child is being removed from. I'm in my 50s just now getting to know my siblings. So in 2019, I started, after a reunion with my sisters from my mother, I started writing about my experience because I honestly thought I might not make it if I didn't. There was so much trauma inside of me. Writing literally saved my life. It was a great form of therapy. And I was writing on my personal page, and I quickly realized maybe not everybody wanted to hear all that. And I was a marketing manager for Whole Foods Market here, and I had been trained in social media. I had used social media to help lots of local businesses, corporate businesses. I had been doing it for years. So I realized that if writing helped me, it could help other adoptees because we're all in these private groups. And there were some talking about it. I'm not saying that I was the first because I was not the first. There were adoptees before me that were the OGs that did this for years. And I started seeing some of them talking about it. And I thought, maybe I should do that. And that's how I came up with the Adopted Chameleon. And once I did that and committed to that, I started actually feeling better. Now, some of my early posts might be a little bit angrier than they are now, but it was growth. That was growth. At first I was a little bit angrier. There's days I'm still angry. There's moments I'm still angrier. And that's okay. At least now I know it's okay. And writing helped me with that. The adoptee community made me see it. There is a language, there is a language within the adoptee community now. And I'm going to give an example. I thought chameleon was something I made up. I did not make that up. I was in a group of adoptees. This was back in 2019. And they were talking about feeling like aliens in the ghost kingdom. And they were using this language. I was like, what? What? I was like, are these people inside my head? I've never told anybody these things. How do they know this language? And I shit you not. One of them held up a book, and on the cover was a chameleon. And I was just like, is that a chameleon on her cover? And they had used the chameleon as the animal. And I, again, had thought I'd made it up. No, I didn't. But it was just our language. And the adoptee community, we have a language when we are together. And it is a form of trauma bonding, not the way that people think of trauma bonding, like you're you have to be together like a codependency. That's not what it is. This is a therapy trauma bond because you hear people saying words and things that you've only had in your head and you know you didn't tell anybody. And when that language comes out, you're like, okay, I'm not crazy anymore. These people feel like I feel. I'm not alone. Oh God, I'm not alone. I am not alone. And all of a sudden, you've got your people and you know you're okay because there's a community out there and you know you can be supported because they understand your language. So all of a sudden, you get a hug. And that's the kind of bonding I'm talking about because you feel seen and heard for the first time in your life because they know your language. And that's what the adoptee community is to each of us. Or at least that's what I've been told in the communities and in my personal group. I have the Adopted Chameleons on Facebook as a personal group too. And there's lots of great groups. Find the one that resonates with you and be in there. There's groups for adopted parents, there's groups for birth family, and I would highly recommend, even if you're a sibling or whatever. My one of my sisters actually joins some of these events and stuff. So yeah, there's something for everyone. Like I said, find the one that resonates with you. There's transracial, there's different groups. There's specific transracial groups. It's there's a lot of us out there and there's more and more all the time. And I want all of us to tell our story. Write your story. It is therapy. Even if you don't agree with what I'm saying, write your story. I don't have to, we don't have to agree. But if you're part of the adoption constellation, get your story out there, get it out. It helps to let that trauma out of you. You have to let it out. It's coming out one way or another. It will. That's why a lot of us get sick. You know, it's part of it. Trauma is in our body, it is in the body. Go check out The Body Keeps a Score. There are books, there are lots of books, there's lots of things out there to study about this. But find your group, find your community, and then you know you'll be seen and heard because your language will be talked. You'll hear it.